engaging your lats, but as you come all the way up and you throw your chest up, you're essentially squeezing your erectors and your lower back. Anytime you arch your back, when you're doing any type of pull-up, and you know what, you're not going to be able to do it on seated pull-downs. Your hips are locked into place, so you'll have to do it on the weight-assisted machine, so you can still use your hips, but you can squeeze that lower back. 4 sets. If you're really trying to isolate your lower lats, typically I'll probably do 15 to 20, but what I did is I slowed them down, and especially when you get to the top, when you're able to pull your chest out, and I think I did sets of 6 to 12. You're not going to be able to do as many if you're really squeezing that lower back and lower lats and you're pushing your chest up. So for me, 6 to 12. For the average person, they probably won't be able to do those. They'll probably have to do the weight-assisted machine with the parallel grip. Well, you want to feel your lats, of course, because it's a lat exercise as you're pulling through. But when you get to the top, you squeeze the lower back and the lower lats, and it's almost like the feeling you get when you get out of squats. Your heavy squats and your back's tighten up, that's the feeling you're going to get when you do these, if you throw your chest up and you squeeze at the top. I like to do deadlifts on my back day because I'm lacking thickness in my upper back. But when you do the deadlift, if you're trying to get the lower back and the lower lats, then turning your shoulders at the top is always going to hit that area. Anytime you pick something up from down here, you're always going to engage that lower back, the lumbar area. But that's going to be a more compound movement than like the hyperextensions. Hyperextensions, you're going to be able to isolate it a lot more. Through the years of training, I've always done heavy deadlifts and I've always done heavy squats. And I would say that that's probably what has developed that thickness, that density, is holding the heavy weights more than isolated squeezes. Yeah, the deadlifts and the squats are definitely going to be more responsible for the lumbar, the lines going across your lower back, whereas the pull-ups, the seated rows, and even the hyperextensions with the weight, with your throwing your shoulders back, that's going to be more responsible for the lower lats. The low row, as you arch your back, once again, as you arch your back and you pull it through, that's going to be what's responsible for the Christmas tree. So in this workout, we did the seated rows, but typically I'll either do seated rows or I'll do one-arm dumbbell rows. And through my years of training, I've always done both those exercises very heavy. And I think that's what's developed the density in my lower lats that makes the Christmas tree look. Yeah, you definitely stress the lower back and the lumbar, but it also depends on how you pivot in the hips. The way I like to do the seated rows, parallel grip seated rows, is I like to have a little bit of a pivot in my hips to pull in the lumbar, and then come up and squeeze the lower lats at the top, and you throw your chest up. But you always keep your back arched. You don't ever hunch over. Always keep your chest up. But typically what I like to do is I like to do probably, if I'm going to do a back workout, you know, I'm going to do a couple of exercises heavy. And typically it's going to be a pull-up that's going to be heavy, and it's going to be a row that's going to be heavy. So I'll always do either one-arm rows with the dumbbell or parallel grip rows. I don't go as heavy now. Typically now I'll do 4 sets of 12 to 15, but back then I would go as heavy as I could. Sometimes I'd go down to 2 reps, but it would typically be 4 to 8 reps on my heavy sets. And then I would always do a pyramid type workout. I would always come back and go light and focus on the squeeze as well at the end. How was it? Couple more. It's really easy to start pulling in your hamstrings and your glutes with good morning. So hip placement is important, and weight is also important too. The more you drop your hips back, the more hamstrings and glutes you're going to pull in. If you want to go lighter weight and you try to keep your legs straight and come straight forward, then you're going to isolate your lumbar more. And the hyperextensions, with the hyperextensions, it's all about the way you roll your shoulders, and it's all about where your hips are placed on the pad. You know, you can use hyperextensions for hamstrings, but the way I did them today was all back. So I put the pad a little bit higher, and I grabbed the weight and I hunched my shoulders over, which I would never do if I was working legs for hyperextensions. You hunch your shoulders over and then you roll your shoulders at the back. So that's going to isolate all that upper back, all the lower lats, and it's going to get the lumbar. Oh, I was on fire on those. Those you really feel an isolated movement. You can kind of compare that to like a leg extension. It's a really isolated movement, so it's more of a burn as opposed to like a squat where it's a compound movement. You're really not feeling one particular muscle. You're feeling quads, hamstrings, and glutes. The hyperextensions are really isolated in your back. I mean, I did 12 to 15 and it was on fire.